This is potentially going to be my most controversial video. Alright, let's go. Toph could have been played by a blind actress. This is something that I said immediately when Mia Check was cast as Toph. Casting a blind actress would have been the better choice. The live-action adaptation of Avatar Season 2 is nearly upon us. It comes out in a few days, and I'm really excited to see it. But since the announcement of Season 2, people have started talking about Toph again, and whether or not she should or could be played by a blind actress. Through behind-the-scenes footage of Mia Check as Toph, we've learned a little bit more about how they went about casting her, how they went about training her to play a blind character. And while Mia Check has done things such as be the only one to promote the accessible version of the Netflix trailer, it's merely a blessing that we got an actress that was so committed to this role. Whereas if a blind actor were cast initially, none of this would need to be a concern. I've come across a lot of very passionate pushback against this idea. So I'm going to explore some of the things that I've noticed people saying. 1. No, it would not be too difficult to find a blind Asian actor. The most common reason that I've seen people give for not casting a blind actress is that they believe it would be too difficult to find a young Asian blind person to play the role. I suspect this might be due to some internalized ableism and racism, in that a white able person is considered default, and therefore believed to be a more common occurrence. Especially when we consider Western studio standards, including Netflix. Blind Asian people exist. Some of these blind people enjoy acting and would love to pursue it as a career. Some have backgrounds in dance and martial arts. Especially because many aspiring actors will participate in these activities in order to increase endurance, versatility, and the chance of being cast in roles that might call for these skills. Then there's her age. Finding child actors is more difficult because they don't have as much experience and are more likely to be unknowns. However, that's what auditions are for. Finding a preteen or teenager to play Toph wouldn't be as challenging as many people believe, especially those who already underestimate the number of blind people in the world and their capabilities. Those who argue this point may be under the impression that a blind actress will be out of reach due to low numbers or lack of interest in auditioning. Blind people are auditioning. The reason that you don't see them on screen is because most of them are ignored in favor of able actors. For example, in this video, Molly Burke describes not being chosen to play a character she was told was based on her own life. The actress chosen to play the character was not blind. The full video is linked in the description if you want to watch it. Netflix has the ability to hold a widespread casting call. They even discussed it in the behind-the-scenes video, where they expressed receiving over 6,000 video auditions for Toph. According to their casting call, Netflix seemed to agree that finding a blind actor was possible. Blind and low vision actresses are encouraged to audition. So people saying that Netflix couldn't possibly cast a blind actress are wrong, because Netflix believed that they could. They simply chose not to for some reason. 2. Some people believe Toph isn't really blind, and therefore the actress who plays her needs to be able to see. The rationale behind this is probably the same as it is for Daredevil, meaning some people don't consider Toph as a blind person because of the way she uses her bending. Now, an argument could be made that Toph's powers erase her blindness, or that her powerful abilities make her less relatable to the average blind person. I don't agree with this, but we'll explore it for now. I suspect many sighted people involved in these discussions of Toph's casting are probably not that worried about issues of erasure and relatability. In these discussions questioning her blindness, evidence given mostly focuses on Toph's physical abilities, instead of, relatability to real blind people. Her bending aside, Toph is most certainly blind. She experiences ableism from her parents and her general community. Blindness shaped her life in a lot of ways, including through her bending, which is also heavily influenced by her disability. In fact, one of the reasons that she mastered earthbending has to do with the fact that she uses it all the time, every single day, for most tasks that other benders would not. On the topic of blindness and relatability, we see Toph being guided while on the airship, needing assistance while walking on ice, and struggling to travel in a desert.
Can't you watch where you're...
No.
Right. Sorry.
We see her use her other senses, including hearing and tactile senses. She has limitations regarding how she's able to interact with an unaccommodating world, such as inaccessible reading and writing systems. The show even makes a point to call this out and make a joke of it. So if Toph weren't really blind, why are these scenes here? There are also lifestyle and cultural implications of blindness beyond the inability to see. Blind people may have different values, different experiences with family and friends, different senses of humor, or may place higher value on other sensory experiences compared to sighted peers. Whether or not Toph is good blindness representation can be argued. The fact that she's a blind character cannot. Her blindness influences her whole life, reducing her, or any blind person for that matter, to only those facets of our experiences oversimplifies what it's like to be blind. So it's both ableist and inaccurate for sighted people to attempt to put us in boxes. Additionally, blindness is a spectrum. According to various sources on the blindness spectrum, about 85 to 95% of blind people have some remaining vision. The Royal National Institute for Blindness estimates about 93% of blind people having some remaining vision. This Perkins School for the Blind fact sheet estimates about 90 to 95% of blind people having some remaining vision. The American Foundation for the Blind estimates that about 15% of blind people are totally blind. The spectrum of blindness is really important because when you consider it, our experiences and even our needs become very diverse. This means that assumptions about what we can or cannot do becomes even harder for sighted people to guess accurately. This accuracy is really important if sighted people are going to attempt to put limitations on blind people, which they have no business doing anyway. Sighted people are not the authority on what blind people can or cannot do, and blind people are already used to navigating and interacting with their surroundings. They've had anywhere from months to a lifetime of experience, which would translate a lot better to Toph's ease with her blindness and her confidence when bending. While an actor, such as Mia, wearing contacts to obscure her vision might stumble around set or need a lot of assistance, someone who's actually blind wouldn't need these things. This wouldn't be the case for someone who's been blind for a long time, let alone someone who's confident enough in their blindness and their ability to navigate that they can audition for. So while Mia Check needed to wear contacts and trained heavily with a blindness consultant who taught her how to navigate the set as a blind person, someone who was already blind wouldn't have needed those things. This could help lend Toph's character a much more relaxed, confident attitude. Therefore, an actress who's also used to being blind can bring a lot to the performance in terms of physicality, attitude, and the ability to focus on portraying the character herself rather than portraying blindness. And the fact that Toph's physicality is not as much of a concern for me in this particular instance has more to do with the blindness consultant rather than any enhanced ability of a sighted actor to play a blind character. 3. The idea that Toph doesn't move like a blind person relies on stereotypes of blind people. While there are mannerisms that are very recognizable in blind communities, aka blindisms, there's no one way to move like a blind person, just like there's no one way to look blind. The idea of not moving like a blind person or not looking blind come from stereotypes of blindness. In fact, these ideas can be so pervasive that some blind people can be accused of faking blindness for no reason other than stereotypes. For example, Sam from The Blind Life has discussed the experience of feeling like he's performing blindness, or feeling pressure to act more blind than he is. He explains that while he has some vision, he uses his cane to indicate to others that he's blind. This is actually one of the main functions of a cane. Sam explains some pressure to adhere to certain stereotypes of blindness, or risk being accused of faking. In another video, Molly Brook describes the stereotype of blind people's eyes looking noticeably different than sighted people's. This includes the very inaccurate belief that all blind people have to have cloudy eyes, blank eyes, eyes that are always closed, or eyes that must be covered in dark sunglasses in order to protect the sensibilities of sighted people. Molly explains that while a lot of blind people can have these attributes, not all of us do. 4. The idea that accommodations would be impossible is ableism. Arguments about accommodations being too difficult or a burden on others aren't limited to discussions about film. They come up in conversations about other workforces or other disabilities. A blind character not being played by a blind actress is one thing, but a blind person not being hired for a job they're completely qualified for due to unfounded resistance to accommodations is not so easy to ignore. it's not so seemingly isolated a concern. Let's explore what work accommodations might look like. Diane Kwan is a blind voice actress who has extensive voice acting work, including popular characters such as Kimmy from Rugrats and Trixie Tang from Fairly OddParents. I found an article where she discusses how she performs. She says that most of the recording was done in a studio with just a mic and a stand for the script. She says, I had the lines in Braille and would read them on my way over to get into character. So most of the work Kwan does involves typical acting stuff. The accommodations given to her might be similar to ones given in an office setting. Additionally, with all the technology available now, it's really easy to make a script accessible through large print, voiceover, and memorization. You could also use a Braille display on the stand or a Word document instead of a PDF. And as of now, Kwan can add adult Toph Feng to her roster of characters. This is an example of hiring a blind actor and it working out. Next, we'll discuss Ellie Walworth. She's a blind actress who performed in Doctor Who. In the Seesaw podcast, she describes her experience working on set, such as blocking scenes and using tactile accommodations. She says that while normally markers are just a piece of tape on the floor, she had to have some tactile ones. While she added that sometimes it takes longer, she lamented how casting directors will automatically assume that navigating the set would be impossible. A lot of sighted people can't imagine living without vision, and so they put these ideas onto blind people, including what they believe our limitations are. For example, Jamie Foxx, in his role as Ray Charles, chose to wear vision-obscuring contacts. When having their vision obscured in this way, sighted people might become lost, confused, and frightened. Fox even told interviewers that he began to hyperventilate as soon as his vision was obscured. Most of the struggles people bring up when discussing this topic apply to sighted actors trying to portray blind characters with their vision obscured rather than an actual blind person. So most of the issues that they bring up aren't really a concern. Mia Check followed the blindness coordinator around, learning how to navigate the set as a blind person, and this wouldn't have been needed if she were already blind. Mia Check also trained in martial arts while blind. Additionally, the trainer they had working with Mia on her martial arts would have had to already know how to train a blind person since Mia wore the contacts during training. Why not hire a blind actress to say they're gonna have her wear contacts anyway? Why not hire a blind actress to say we're going to have her trained in martial arts wearing contacts? Why not hire a blind actress if they were going to have her navigate the set while wearing blindness simulating contacts anyway? All this is not to say that sighted actors can't do well or can't put a lot of effort and commitment into their performance. Charlie Cox won an award from the AFB for his commitment to portraying Daredevil. I love Michaela Murphy, who originally played Toph in the original show. She did a really good job, but that doesn't mean that blind actors can't be cast more often moving forward. 5. Some people are concerned that a blind person might get hurt during martial arts, but so could literally anyone else. Parentheses, that's why we have insurance. I mean, this is such a weird take, but it is something that I've seen floating around sometimes, so I wanted to address it. First of all, children can get hurt doing literally any sport, and yet we let them do almost all sports. In fact, some sports are dominated by children, including gymnastics. However, disabled children, and adults for that matter, are often patronizingly reminded that we're being kept out of these spaces for our own safety. This need to protect disabled people is weirdly infantilizing, but also hypocritical. Why discourage a blind person from playing recreational sports while simultaneously firmly keeping in place structures that put blind people at risk every day? Discrimination around transportation, inaccessible infrastructure, poverty. But blind people play sports anyway. Often these sports carry their own risk of injury, as most sports do. Here's a video of Sadie the blind lady on TikTok discussing goalball with Elenia Mason, a Paralympic athlete who plays goalball professionally.
And basically on offense, we are throwing the ball as hard as we can with a lot of technique involved, about 35, 40 miles an hour to have it hit the ground and roll and hit the other players in their body. And on defense, you're throwing your body out and diving in front of this 3-pound ball and blocking it. So essentially, you want to get hit with the ball.
Getting hit with the ball is probably going to hurt. The possibility of injury should not be something that prevents everyone from playing a sport, whether they're blind or sighted. While one can argue that sports injuries are preventable, the person auditioning for Toph knows that martial arts are going to be implemented. She would spend time learning choreography, building trust with co-actors, and figuring out what actually works best for her. A blind actress playing Toph might have gotten hurt during training or blocking or any other experience on set, but so could Mia Check. That's no reason to exclude a blind person specifically from participating in sports or in filming. The fact that this is choreography is also helpful as it allows for memorizations of actions and reactions. Again, we also see Mia Check practicing martial arts while wearing her contacts. Conversely, a lot of sports that I mentioned before are not choreographed. They're not as planned. If a blind person can be okay with possibly getting smacked in the stomach during goal ball, a blind person can learn some fight choreography. I think they simply missed an opportunity that would have been really cool. I hope this video isn't too controversial, but you know what, if it is, just go ahead and share it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Increase my engagement. Thank you. Bye!